Hi, it's Rob from the Brush and Boltgun. Today I'm going to be doing a tutorial on how to paint red cloaks. If you'd like to support the channel, our Ko-fi and Patreon page is linked below. Now on to the video. The first colour that we're going to use for the cloaks is Citadel Mephiston Red. This gives a nice deep red for the kind of cloaks that you get for the Ultramarines or the Custodes. Use the same ones on the Black Templars as well. But if you give the cloak a nice base of Mephiston Red, make sure it's quite a nice smooth base, and we can move on to the next one. Now we're going to use Citadel Druchii Violet, which is the shade, and we're just going to shade the whole of the cloak. Now you can just go around the recesses if you want to. I prefer to do the whole cloak because then you can kind of do some rough blending from where you get those flatter areas of the cloak and the recesses at the edge of them, or you get the slight creases and you have the darker areas shaded so that you can then use a little bit of the red to blend that in. I'm going to go back to Citadel Mephiston Red now. What we're doing here is we're putting on the base colour again, but we're going to be leaving the Druchii Violet in all the recesses. You can see here there's quite a big gap when it's been put together. There's a little ridge going across there. Now, I do try and fill that with paint once the paint dries. It's not very good, so I go back and use a little bit of Vallejo plastic putty just to fill in that gap a little bit, make it slightly less noticeable. The same for the other side as well. There's a little ridge there too, so I use a little bit of that plastic putty to fill that too. Usually if it's quite a small ridge you can get away with that, but that's slightly too glaring for me, that. So what we're doing here is we're leaving the recesses shaded and we're building up that red. So you want to have a nice smooth red once you've finished applying it, and you want to leave the shade into those recesses and the slight concave areas on that cloak. So you've got like a little concave on that side piece of cloak there. You can see it when I turn the miniature. You can see that shaded section where the Druchii Violet is, so we're going to do a little bit of Mephiston Red each side and leave a little bit of the Druchii Violet down the middle there. Now what we'll do is, once I've reapplied the red, is use a touch of Druchii Violet just to smooth off that little section in the middle there. You can see there's a bit of Mephiston Red gone through where that little Druchii Violet section is. So all you do is use a little bit of Druchii Violet and go over that Mephiston Red area in that recess, and that will darken that back up again. You can see now that we're working on the ridges and the kind of crests on those folds, building up that red again and leaving that darker area in all the recesses. The good thing about the shades is it almost tells you where you're going to be reapplying the base colours again when you're looking at it. You can see where it pools just underneath this section I'm doing here. You're going to be leaving that slightly darker because you're going to have the shade from those folds above. So you can do a kind of bit of a V shape where that darker section is. You've got like the slight concave on the right hand side of it. You've got the ridges on the right hand side of that ridge itself from that kind of centerpiece, I suppose. On these sections you can do a little bit of the red on the inside of the folds because the light will be catching them. So basically what you're trying to do is capture the effect that the light is coming from above, and so certain areas will be shaded. So now we're going to go on to Citadel Evil Sunz Scarlet, which is the next colour that we're going to do for these. Now you might recognise this set of colours from a lot of other videos that I do with reds, and it is quite a popular thing for me to use this kind of style of red because I just think it gives a really nice kind of depth of colour. It's nice and bright and it really does stand out. So what we're doing here is we're colouring about maybe 50% of the area that we used the Mephiston Red on, so that you're going to have the Evil Sunz Scarlet on the top, then you'll have a little area of Mephiston Red, then you'll have that shade in the recesses, and that's the effect that you're trying to get on each of these little ridges. So I'm using a small layer brush here, I think it is, the reasonable point, so that I can get into those little ridges down the middle there. Then you've got all these folds here which are really good. If you leave a little bit of the Mephiston Red below the shade from those recesses and just build up these areas here with the Evil Sunz Scarlet, you can see that that's taken on that kind of almost 3D look on its own. Again, we're going down the ridges here, doing about 50% of the Mephiston Red, leaving the Mephiston Red now in those lighter recesses, so where you've got slight concaves, you can leave a bit of the Mephiston Red there, as that's going to be the dark shade to this. Start picking out some of the details, different areas where you would have these highlights. Again, thinking about if it's getting lit from above, where it's going to have that highlight and that lighter colour. This is a very, very simple way to do cloaks. You can blend that in if you wanted to, or use extra colours or mix the colours so you've got extra shades in there. But there's a really simple way of doing the colours and getting that nice, almost like multi-tone red for the cloak, with all the creases, the recesses and the crests on the material. So using Citadel Wild Rider Red here, you're going to go down the length of each of those creases. Try not to have a shake in your hand that then makes you paint over one of the ridges. I'm going to use a little bit of Mephiston Red to cover that bit up in a moment. But on these sections where you've got the folds, you want to be doing a little bit of this on the vertical and the horizontal too, so that you have that nice standout edge to each of those creases. Putting a little bit of Mephiston Red back on there to cover up the Wild Rider Red that I just judded into position. See now, just from the sections that we've added the Wild Rider Red to, how much of a difference that makes. So it's catching the light and making those creases and edges a lot brighter. So working on this little section of creases here, you can get this looking really, really nice really easily by just tracing that little edging along. So where the top of the creases come down, you want to have those edges with the Wild Rider Red going around. To me, that makes that stand out quite nicely. Considering you're only using 3 colours and 1 shade to get that effect, I do think it's a worthwhile one to have a go at, because it means you can get your cloaks looking really, really nice. You can do this with pretty much any colour as well, as long as you've got those 3 kind of shades of the same one. It is all just about learning that technique. So this is the finished cloak. I'm pretty happy with how that's turned out. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you have, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future content. Also, think about subscribing to some of our other social media, link below.
Thanks very much.
If you like the channel and you enjoy the content, please consider supporting Brush and Boltgun at the Coffee and Patreon links below. Thanks very much.